Every time you tap your phone or ask an AI a question, there's this lightning-fast transaction happening in the background. But behind all that speed, way deeper than the silicone chips we always hear about, there's this hidden world, a whole microscopic infrastructure that makes everything possible. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain and dive deep into that silent backbone of our digital lives, South Korea's printed circuit board industry.
So let's just start with a really basic question. We all know AI depends on these incredibly powerful processors, right? But what is it that actually gives them their mind-bending speed? How can they crunch trillions of operations in the blink of an eye?
Well, the answer, and this might surprise you, isn't just the silicon chip itself. I mean, as amazing as that little piece of engineering is, it's totally useless on its own. It needs a platform, a foundation to even talk to the rest of the world. And that foundation, that's the package substrate. It's a very specialized type of printed circuit board, or PCB. Honestly, it's the real unsung hero of high-performance computing. It's the critical link that turns a piece of silicon into the actual functioning brain of a server or a smartphone. Okay, I want you to think of it like this. Picture a tiny, multi-layered city. The silicon chip, that's the central command center. But the substrate, that's the whole sprawling metropolis of roads, power grids, and data highways that connect that command center to everything else. Without that city grid, you get no power, no communication, basically nothing works.
Now, what's so fascinating about the South Korean industry is how it's kind of split itself into two camps to dominate this space. On one hand, you have the substrate titans. These guys are all about the chip itself, building those rigid, powerful foundations for AI servers and memory. And on the other hand, you have the flexible innovators who are focused on the device, creating these bendy, paper-thin circuits for things like smartphones. And this split, it's no accident. It's a brilliant strategy that lets them own both the high-power computing and the consumer electronics markets at the same time. All right, let's dig into that first group, the substrate titans. These are the companies building the incredibly dense, rock-solid platforms that the world's most powerful AI and memory chips live on. They are, quite literally, building the bedrock of modern computing.
So yeah, that package substrate is the foundational bedrock. It's an absolute marvel of engineering. Its job is to make sure the chip gets perfectly stable power and can send data at unbelievable speeds. It's the high-performance launchpad that really unlocks a processor's true power.
And here's what really defines the titans in this space: their incredible, singular focus. You look at companies like Simmtech, Daeduck Electronics, and TLB. 100% of their business is dedicated to this field. That's it. They're not distracted by anything else, which lets them build this deep, specialized expertise that the world's biggest chip makers absolutely depend on.
And because of that focus, they've made themselves completely indispensable. I mean, they are woven into the very fabric of the global tech supply chain. Take Simmtech, a whopping 68% of its revenue comes from just 3 clients. And you see the same story with Daeduck and TLB. They're core suppliers to the absolute giants, Samsung, SK Hynix, Micron. At this point, they're not just suppliers, they're strategic partners. Okay, so let's shift gears and look at the other side of the industry, the flexible innovators. If the titans are building the rigid bedrock for raw computing power, these companies are weaving the delicate, bendable circuits that act like the nervous system inside our phones and gadgets.
An FPCB is pretty much what it sounds like. A circuit board that can bend. Think of a paper-thin ribbon of copper that can twist and fold into the super tight spaces inside a smartphone or behind a foldable screen. This is the magic that allows our devices to be so impossibly thin and sleek.
And the leaders here are just as dominant. BH is the undisputed king, pulling in over $1.2 billion in revenue. They are a critical supplier for those gorgeous OLED screens in Apple's iPhones, working through Samsung Display. Then you've got players like Interflex, another major producer, who've carved out a huge chunk of the market all across Asia.
But, this level of specialization, it's a double-edged sword. This chart for BH really tells the whole story. The vast majority of their money comes from just one client pipeline, Samsung Display. And that creates something called concentration risk. Yeah, the relationship is super profitable right now, but it also means their entire business basically rises or falls with the success of one specific set of products.
So this dynamic, this tension between specialization and risk, it's driving another huge trend in the industry: consolidation. In the high-stakes game of PCB manufacturing, the strong don't just survive, they often eat the weak. It's really turning into an industry of predators and targets.
So what separates the predators from the prey here?
Well, the predators, companies like Korea Circuit, Daeduck, and BH, they're the ones with strong cash flow and a history of making smart strategic acquisitions. They have the money and the muscle. On the other side, you've got the targets, like Fine Circuit and Newflex. These are often companies struggling financially or with a product focus that's just too narrow, making them really vulnerable.
Let's look at a textbook predator profile. Korea Circuit. We're talking over $1 billion in revenue. They recently just absorbed their own subsidiary, Teranix, to get more efficient. And they're not just buying companies, they're looking ahead, actively developing next-gen products for huge clients like NVIDIA. This is a company that is clearly playing offense.
Now, compare that with the targets. Fine Circuit posted a net loss of over $3 million. And get this, its management couldn't even estimate its own market share. That's a huge red flag. Then there's Newflex, which is getting squeezed by cheap competition on one side, while its new business venture just isn't making money yet. These are the kinds of companies that get snapped up.
So, with all this happening, where is the industry headed? Beyond all the market drama, the technology itself is about to take another massive leap. The demands from AI, from 6G, from high-performance computing, it's all pushing these companies to innovate faster than they ever have before.
And you can already see the roadmap for what's coming. It starts with supporting today's fast memory, DDR5. But the real game changers is the move to totally new module concepts like CXL and LPCAMM. These are new standards that let processors and memory talk to each other way faster and more efficiently. That then paves the way for even deeper integration with new AI CPUs like NVIDIA's Vera platform. And then, looming on the horizon is 6G, which is going to demand circuit boards more complex than anything we can even imagine today. And all of this really brings us to the ultimate takeaway. This quote from HDIN Research just nails it. The industry is shifting from scale competition to process premium. It's not about who can make the most stuff the cheapest anymore. It's about who can master the most complex, the most sophisticated manufacturing processes. The future isn't about scale, it's about the process premium. It's a flat-out race for technological superiority, and whoever wins is going to build the foundation of our next digital revolution.
Presented by HDIN Research. Visit www.hdinresearch.com for the full industry audit.